sit in a little area for 3 or 4 hours, a little pick and a little light, because that down that deep, you can't see anything. It's completely dark. So, I don't know. I guess I do give them credit. I don't know any engineers that have ever done a whole lot. So what we're looking for, again, is these slide planes. Here you can actually see this is a big landslide excavation during repair. But this is the slide plane right through here. It's this gray kind of material, very distinct from the material below it and the material above it. So again, this is what we're looking for. Once we identify that, then we can actually do some types of repair. And landslide evaluation is pretty simple. It's driving forces against resisting forces, good guys versus bad guys. The more driving forces that you have, the more it's going to try to push the fill down. The more resisting forces you have, it's there to hold them up. A number of different repair alternatives. You know, we can add more resisting forces at the bottom. We can remove driving forces at the top, and we can actually strengthen the middle here to add more resisting forces. Again, it really depends on the situation that you're in, but there's a number of alternatives. There's sometimes we'll see superficial stability issues. These are not very deep, typically in the top 5 feet. Okay, you might see these on some slopes. These aren't real bad, but left unfixed or undone, you can have the domino effect where now the material up here is no longer supported by the material that used to be down here. And if that continues to propagate up the hill, you can end up actually then damaging structures at the top of the slope. So these are things you want to definitely look out for. If you see some indications of instability where there might be a hole in the slope or there's soil, there's no more ground, you want to make sure you have someone take a look at that. Last, I'm going to just talk about a couple little case histories. This is actually a pool that was damaged during the Northridge earthquake. Original design, it's always important. We were working on a hillside home one time where we went out there and did the soils report. We actually went out there during the foundation construction, and our technician noted, you know, hey, we looked at the foundation excavations here and here for this split level home. You know, after that point, they said, okay, thanks, Nino Moore, we don't really need you guys anymore, we're going to build the rest of our house. Well, 2 or 3 years later, we get the phone call from an attorney that says, oh, Nino Moore, I understand you worked on this house, we looked in our database, oh yeah, we worked at that address. Well, we think you better come out and take a look at this house. There's some problems. That's never a call you enjoy taking, so we go out and take a look at it. And what had happened is the floor was tilting. There was about 8 inches of tilt, so very obvious. The house was very distressed. We were a little concerned, of course. Well, it turns out we went down there, we looked at our notes, and we said, okay, well, the split level house, we walked around and said, well, what happened to the split level? Well, it turns out the owner said, oh, well, it got kind of expensive, you know, to build all these walls. We decided we didn't quite have enough money, so we ended up just filling in this area they had previously excavated and then built their house. The problem was nobody watched the fill go in. Nobody tested it. The contractor just kind of put it in. Well, sure enough, all this fill ended up settling and causing this 8 inches of settlement. You know, luckily, again, we had our documentation. Hey, you know, we were out there during the excavation. We saw the foundations. Had you built it the way it was originally designed, you're probably okay. But now that you kind of changed the design and really had this undocumented fill, you know, we're kind of no longer responsible. Sorry. And unfortunately, I don't know what ended up having. I believe they ended up having to demo that house and rebuild it. Another house at one time we went and took a look at, we got another call. Again, we weren't involved in the original design of this house. We said, can you come out and take a look at it? Because again, we had this floor level survey that's out of whack. It's really tilted. We went and looked at it, and it was actually an insurance job where they said, hey, we have this about a $500,000 repair. Before we just give you okay, we want another third party to take a look. So we went, and essentially there's distress. They recommended putting essentially caissons, concrete columns, underneath the house and underpinning the house into this bedrock material. Again, this is one of those, it was on fill, so it was, you know, more fill in the back, less in the front. We had a differential settlement. Now, if you're just looking at this situation, it's pretty easy. You've got deep fill here. Which way would you imagine this house is tilting? Would it be tilting down in this direction or down in this direction? A or B? How many say A? Excellent. How many say B? A couple B's. How many don't care? Okay. Well, what happened is the house was actually tilting in the B direction. And that seemed kind of odd to us because, you know, it seems that most of the houses we looked at would normally be in the A direction. So we kind of scratched our head. We started looking around. In the back, in the street, we actually started seeing cracks and things like that out here. So what actually we ended up doing as I mentioned, this house was tilted in this direction. Didn't really make sense. When we started seeing the cracks and other distress in the street, we realized what was going on. There was a deep landslide underneath this house. And so what was happening is we did some subsurface investigation. We sent our geologist, our brave geologist, down. Sure enough, they found the slide plane. And what happened is, this was actually the potential of starting with deep landslide. Had they went ahead and gone with this $500,000 underpinning repair, the landslide would have never known the difference. They would have done all this money, and the landslide probably still would have kept on going. And
how much money did you spend to find out the right answer?
This study was probably about a $30,000 to $40,000 investigation.
But a realtor could probably come up with that, could have identified the problem right off the bat.
There you go. Smart person, yeah. You can take a look. It's
visual inspection, a minor crack.
A lot of this is really common sense. Remember, think about our sponge. I mean, soils engineering really isn't that technical. It's not that difficult, but you do have to kind of think. And does this stuff make sense? In this particular case, I think the grading repair was on the order of a couple $100,000. So it ended up actually saving money and actually doing something very effective for the property. And with that, I don't know if there's any questions and questions. I might have some answers, hopefully.
If you just come out and look at a situation, what's your consultation fee, or what? I mean,
that's going to kind of vary. It depends on the size of the house, and I'll be honest. There are some small firms that actually specialize in residential, single-family home residential evaluations. Well, they'll come out, do a visual inspection. Usually, I want to say those guys are maybe on the order of $500 plus or minus. Something like that, to kind of take a look. What they're going to do is they're probably going to do the background, look at the maps that I kind of showed in the beginning. They're going to come out and take a visual, and they're going to just look for signs of potential issues. And then they might tell you, hey, if there is something that looks of concern, they might tell you this might need to be further evaluated. Soil investigations, again, if you're talking with some of these smaller firms, you're maybe talking on the order of $5,000, $10,000, depending on the severity. Like I said, if the landslide, it can be tens of thousands for just the investigation. Just depends on the situation. Yes. If you're going to be doing new construction, I would probably recommend, if you're looking at an existing structure, unless there's really evidence of some type of distress, something that's going on. Oh, the fire line. Yeah, if you're I have been telling people, if you're if you're looking at commercial property and you're looking at a property that's say on the order of over 20 years, that is something you might want to consider. Having a look at either the original soils report. Unfortunately, 20 years ago, they may not have evaluated the corrosivity of soils. Any new soils report today will. But if you're looking at something 20, 30 years ago, it may not, and you might want to take a look at that for that issue, or have the fire lines checked.
Well, since we're all staging homes and we're all patching all the crevices and painting all the houses, how are we supposed to know whether there's a problem with the house?
That's a good question. Some of this, like I said, stucco. If any time I guess I see a brand new, something that's newly painted, if you're just kind of staging, doing it quick, sometimes you can look and well, this paint doesn't look the same. It looks like someone's painted around. And if I notice that all the windows and all the doors have been painted around, I'm going to question, I'm going to wonder. One thing that you really can't fix is the floor level survey, because the floor level survey is going to be what it is. In order to re-level a house, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, so someone's probably not going to do that. So a floor level survey, again, it's a non-invasive test. It's very easy. It tells you how, every house that I bought, I've always done a floor level survey just to make sure. Because the cracks you can't see. Yes.
I feel like in this area, I've never seen a home that's brand new, or that's a year or 2 years old, that are, we have a lot of stucco Mediterranean homes that don't have cracks in the stucco on the outside,
sure.
And they are, again,
You're talking about the size of the crack. She's talking about the size.
Correct. It's a good point. One thing I'd like to say, hairline crack. All concrete cracks. Okay. So if you see a crack in concrete, it's not necessarily bad. Okay. What really tells us is the width of the crack. How wide is the crack, and is there any differential movement on the crack? Same with stucco. If you see stucco cracks that actually have a differential, that's probably not a good sign, because it probably means the house is shifted. Okay.